All right, I'd like to call to order the policy meeting, knowing that all board members are here, as well as a bunch of other guests, Randy, Tim, Tiffany,
Yeah.
and Amy. Sorry,
It's morning.
it's morning and a little bit out of sorts here. I'd like to an approval of the agenda.
So moved. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we had any public comments at all this particular time around, no emails. And so we'll go right into the policies.
All right, very good.
Randy.
Yep, we followed the same process that we've had previously. We reviewed them administratively, then Beck and I reviewed them with Ted, and now they're coming here, and then they will end up at the board at the next meeting. I think today's are relatively straightforward. We're going to start off with 342.5. This is actually the next few are with regards to Title I programming. And there are certain requirements with under Title I that and some of the policy language that we need to have, so that a couple things we wanted to articulate in 342.5. We are a targeted assistance model. There's different models as far as how Title I is organized. There's targeted assistance, and then there's just like school-wide or district-wide. And so we are a targeted assistance. So that just articulates what that is. And the person who would be in charge of that is our director of elementary CNI, which is Amy. So we would recommend adopting the Title I policy using the PRG model. We can go through all of them and you can just make one motion if that's what you like to do, or we can adopt each one as we go, whichever you prefer.
Should we go? Yeah.
Want to do each of them at a time? Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, we'll just do each one.
So I will say I kind of grouped them together. 342.5 policy, 342.5 rule.
Oh, we can do that one. We can go with the rule, then let's do it as one motion. So the next one is with regard 342.5. This is a Title I parent and family engagement policy guidelines. There are requirements that we have under Title I, and as far as how we reach out to parents and engage with them, and there needs to be a policy that reflects that. So this again is following again the principal and director of elementary CNI. We are not using the yellow paragraph. I think there was a piece that we pulled out that just didn't fit with us. So we're recommending adoption of both of those from the PRG for both 342.5 and the associated rule.
Do we get many queries about Title I or Title I programs? Parent feedback.
Because as Randy said, we're targeted assistance model. There's a small number of students who are in that model, and so the reading and math interventionists communicate with us.
Do you have a ballpark idea kind of what our size of our Title I grant is?
It's like 90,000 and less.
It's pretty small. I mean, it's really built off of economically disadvantaged numbers. It's kind of where the funding comes from. So when I first started in Waunakee 15 years ago, we didn't even qualify for Title I. So this is kind of,
it's not the students, it's this whole population.
It's the students, and then it's
the funding's based on your
poverty level.
It is poverty level.
So you hit the poverty level.
Then we identify students in need of.
Right. So then you identify which students are eligible and which schools are eligible.
It's both the need of the student and the economic.
The economic, and reduced numbers is what provides our allocation, but then it's not necessarily those students who receive the services. It's the students.
Correct. So there's quite a process there, and much of this is driven by federal law and also by some other requirements. So that's really what the policy is reflecting.
Well, I think that we adopt the program as is, the title of the one. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. Okay. The next one really is kind of falls into Tiffany's wheelhouse. This is independent educational evaluations.
This is one of the policy, the second procedures.
Correct. So I mean, I think this is a piece that, I mean, we've had a few inquiries about this on an annual basis. This is with regards to if a parent doesn't agree with an evaluation that we do, that they have the ability to seek an independent evaluation. And then this is a policy that kind of gives some direction to that. So our recommendation is that, and the person who would be in charge of that would be Tiffany in her position. So I think from our perspective, this is a update to our policy, which we believe is necessary.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
There was a couple of those too, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next one is actually the rule that goes along with that. So it's very similar. This is talks more specifically about the specifics of what that looks like. Right. The other piece under the rule was we did put a dollar amount. I mean, I think the School Board Association put in a dollar amount that just from some recent work that Tiffany was doing, she didn't feel that that was really accurate for or reflect really the range that we thought was appropriate. So what we've added in there is a range of $500 to $2,000, and that seems to be kind of in the ballpark of some of the numbers that you've been seeing recently.
You could imagine that if a parent said, well, I want a neuropsychological evaluation in a medical facility, $500. It's not going to cover it.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah.
Do they pay? We pay.
In this process, they're basically requesting that we pay. They're saying we're not happy with the evaluation you did, therefore we want our own independent evaluation.
And is there something in here that can state we agree that we'll pay for it, or we agree?
Yeah, that's what the procedures are really about, is like the steps we have to take in order to determine, because if we believe our evaluation was appropriate, we could go to a due process hearing and let a hearing officer tell us, yes, your evaluation is appropriate, and then we are not required to pay for an outside evaluation. But if the hearing officer were to say, well, we reviewed your evaluation, we don't think it's appropriate, then they would say we have to pay for that outside evaluation. So,
And again, how often does this happen?
and this once so far, since I've been here, so once or twice a year, maybe, not even. So yeah.
It comes up once or twice a year, maybe. The actual people who are really seriously interested in it, it's quite rare.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I've ever had one that we paid for in my recollection. But yeah, I think you're correct. I mean, if there is a disagreement, there is a process through DPI called the due process. It's basically a independent hearing officer kind of hears what each side's position is and then makes a ruling. But I think that the policy is appropriate and needed, and the update with the dollars that Tiffany's recommending are in line with what we should have. Probably just one we have to keep our eye on as we kind of move forward, probably every so many years to look at, make sure that those dollar amounts are still there. But I think we need to have something in there that guides it.
Motion to approve this rule. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
You lump these two together too.
Yeah.
All right. So the next ones are with regards to programs where you have a student who wants to take a class at either the tech college or the university and receive credit for them. So we have, there's rules around that, there's state law around what we have to offer and how we have to go through and discern that. Our policies provide the guidance as far as what's kind of the maximum number of credits that somebody can take. And then it just also talks about, you know, at what point are those eligible? The vetting out of that is articulated in the policy with regards to our school to work coordinator, and then Tim and CNI and the building principal are the ones that really look at that. You just saw some of these come forward in the subsequent board meeting. Usually what you'll see when a student brings these forward is they'll have a whole list of classes that they're asking for. It's usually just because they don't know which ones they can get into, and which ones will fit into their schedule. So you'll see a student with like 7, 8 classes they're asking for. They actually taking all of those. In our case, they're just looking for permissions that then they can then apply for them. But this policy is what directs it. It's actually a piece that's required for us to have. One of them deals with the technical college program, and one is with the university. Anything to add to that?
Just that there's a lot of similarity between the two programs, but there are a few small differences between the program to access a technical college course and the program to access a college university course. And that's why, so there's different state statutes, and that's why we have two different policies, even though they look so similar.
We have a number of students who take advantage of it, but not nearly as many as like a school that would be in a close adjacency to. I also use the example of Baraboo, because that's where I used to work. BOE was out the back door, and so you could literally walk across the soccer field and be at the universities. There was quite a bit of it fit in pretty well for our students. I mean, there's some online options that they're able to tag into now, but otherwise it's trying to fit it into your schedule and some of those options. So we do have kids take advantage of it, but not as many as I think that sometimes think. And probably a lot more of our efforts are put into trying to create articulated classes and other options where they can get credit just through programs within our school itself. But these are two things that we do need to offer, and we do have kids that take advantage of it. And you see these come before the board on an annual basis.
Is there any cost consideration, like is that factor in, like what other classes depending on which institution it's at?
Yes, that's a great question. So
Right.
district pays, but there are two kind of I guess what I would call limitations on students accessing the program. One is there is a cap on the number of credits they can access in the program. And then secondly, there is, and this is actually addressed in the policy, a comparability test. So for example, we offer for level 5 and level 6 world language courses here at the high school, courses that are articulated in French and Spanish with UW-Oshkosh. If a student came to us and said, we would like to take the equivalent course at Madison College, Edgewood, UW-Madison, he would say, and there's a test for this, but we would be able to say, well, we offer a comparable course here at the high school, so no, we won't pay for you to go off-site. And so, I mean, I think, to what Randy said, kind of, it does have, even as close as we are to Madison, by the time you actually travel to the campus and deal with the block of instructional time, unless it's an online course that's involved, it's not just one period you're losing in the day, it's typically more. So that can be very disruptive to a student. Plus, we do have a lot of post-secondary offerings already at the high school.
Is there any accountability to attendance and completion of the course?
So if a student, and this is in the policy, if a student were not to be successful, and again, in our experience, students are by and large highly successful in these courses, but if they were not to be successful, then we can get the cost back.
You occasionally run into a class that it has been part of the discussion at the board level. I haven't seen it recently, but in previous years where you'd see a student taking like a FIED class that we just don't offer.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to pay for it because we don't have one that articulates close enough to it. We've had one or two kids over time that have kind of taken the bulk of their college. They've taken kind of a college load of classes, a semester of classes that they are appropriate under the policy, but they're really not attending here. They're attending at the college and we're paying for it. So there's some limitations on how many credits you can take as a max and receive out of the program. Mm-hmm. That's just part of kind of what we deal with. But I think, as Tim said, most of our kids who are working through this are pretty hard charging kids, and to try to figure out how that's going to fit within their current schedule and their current load, given the number of classes that we do articulate, particularly.
So you don't see abuse.
You see about what you're seeing coming before the board is what we see on an annual basis. So there's usually.
And there have been versions of this program in existence since the 90s. So I mean, this is
used to be youth options, and so there was different names. It just got articulated a little bit differently in recent years. So that's why the policy upgrades. Good program.
So suggest that we
So we can look at the rule. I think we kind of touched on some of the questions, some of the things in the rules too. I mean, if we were right, we lump these together.
Yep, you can lump those two together. Correct. Yeah, you have basically there's the two programs, the 343.5 and 343. They're
343, 45, and then 345, 46.
Yeah, they're just getting renumbered here. And those are dealing with, one's the tech college program and the other one is the university program.
So lumping them together. Second, you've got these policies.
And Katie had a second, so all in favor?
Aye. That was the tough part of printing them out. I said, I just printed that one.
Yeah.
It's so similar.
They look very similar.
And mainly you're just saying the different institutions, the
Yeah.
difference is that I believe the tech college system, you cannot participate in the summer, but the early college credit for the universities and colleges, there is a summer component. So it's a term by term kind of.
The next policy, 343.5, is with regards to tutoring. We're not making any changes to that. We're just going to keep that policy as is. It just gives guidance on kind of like how we deal with tutoring services, direction for staff that they shouldn't be tutoring kids like in their direct class. So we occasionally get that coming up. We do have staff that do tutor outside of school, but it's really directed at, like, if you're a second grade teacher, you shouldn't be being paid by a parent to not tutor them after school. That's part of your professional duties, but we feel that policy is appropriate, and as we read it through it, we would just keep it. So there's no action needed on that. That'll just stay remain as
So
it is.
the strongly discourages, that's hard enough.
I think so. We don't really have much of an issue with it.
Okay, so we don't need to vote on that.
Nope, no vote necessary. And the last one is one called adult education. You just want to bring that one up. That's just the way we say it. This is when we're actually asking to repeal. This is if somebody is coming back to us kind of after their age 20. We do have that occasionally. I mean, if we had a student who was credit deficient and came back to us, we direct them to MATC. I mean, the tech college right now has the high school equivalency diploma piece. That's where our direction would go. And we occasionally have had somebody come back. I can remember a number of years ago, we gave some, it was to a gentleman who was, I think he was like a World War II veteran. We just never got his diploma, or he was a Vietnam War veteran. He just didn't, he was drafted and went into the Army and never graduated. And we gave him his diploma, but we don't need a policy for that. Those are things we can address on our own. And we felt that we're not going to bring students right now that are over 20 back into our system. So our view is that this is something we would counsel them and work with them to get into like the tech college system where they have the programs to be able to address that. So our recommendation is just to repeal this.
And didn't we have a couple of years ago somebody who wanted to stay? They had finished their graduation requirements and wanted to.
Right, we said no to that.
We denied that one.
We had a student who actually graduated that semester and then wanted to stay. That was one, but there's been a couple different versions of that. So yeah, I think at this point, we just believe we repeal that one because we just don't see that as part of something that we need guidance on.
I mean, we've not operated any program under this policy since at least 1999.
Yeah.
Maybe even further back.
Yeah.
Make the motion to repeal this. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Took me longer to print this stuff.
Yeah, there we go. That's all we have for today.
Nice job.
I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?